3, 2, 1, and I believe are live. Okay, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to Wolf. Welcome to another podcast. Here with the STM.co team, talking about RWAs today. Real world assets, global liquidity, stable coins are everywhere. Everyone's talking about it. It's one of the most interesting industries for me on a personal level, but also just across the industry. I think, especially after the recent craze of meme coins and pure hopium, pure, just chaos all over the streets. People are starting to say, all right, I got to move to Bitcoin a little bit. I got to move to something stable a little bit. What is something I can invest in that has something real and raw to it and just has something there, just something behind the curtain? And so I'm really stoked to be talking with Herwig and Jason here from STM.co. They've also got a conference coming up in New York City. Wolf team will be there as well. I'm sure a lot of other companies will also be attending. And so I'm stoked to talk about the RWA industry as well as the conference with both of you. Jason, how's it going?
Doing well. Thanks for having us, man. The RWA space is booming. It's here to stay. We're excited to talk tokens and, of course, dive into TokenizeThis as well. Joined also my CEO, Herwig. How's it going? I'll pass it over to you, man.
Yeah, glad to be here. Thanks for having us, Cade. We're excited to have you in New York. It's going to be an awesome time talking about RWAs, man. Let's get into it.
Yeah, man, absolutely. I couldn't think of a better place to be hosting that event. New York City is goated. Love that place. So before we jump into the conversation, if you guys could, and I'll pose this question to either of you, give a brief introduction for people who are unaware of what you guys are building in the space. And I would love to get your overall high-level thoughts on the real-world asset industry as a whole, and then we'll kind of go from there.
Yeah, that sounds great. Quick promo here about STM.co. We are the oldest and largest RWA data hub in the space. So actually, we track over $60 billion in tokenized assets, equities, debt, pretty much anything that we consider originally a security, but really an investment opportunity. Now transformed into real world assets, like you were saying, right? And we've been doing a podcast in the space for over 5 years. We have a lot of research and cool newsletters for people to check out. So I kind of call myself the industry's biggest cheerleader. That's who we are. To help support the adoption of real world assets and also help people get into it, right? What are these things that are getting tokenized? Where can I buy them? What's the actual financial information behind them? We try to make it easy to find all that in one place. We realized a couple of years ago that there was something missing, which was a dedicated conference for the industry. It was usually always a topic, a side panel at a crypto conference. It was never all about tokenization. And now we've got 3 days of content, to cover next month. So it goes to show you how far we've come. We're always happy to be a resource and helpful for anyone who's interested in this topic.
Beautiful. Jason, is there anything you wanted to add to that?
Just that, this space has been going for a long time, and it took a while for people to understand it. People saw, live through the NFT craze and a lot of the DeFi platforms, a lot of great stuff happening on blockchain in general. But when it comes to the real opportunity and kind of like the killer application, it is going to be moving capital markets onto the blockchain. And that's part of the reason why we put together this conference, is because you have so many things that you can dive into very specifically. For example, real estate on its own, you're going to have multi-hour conversations on why tokenization affects it versus funds versus other institutional things in the back and middle office. So there's something there for everyone. And we're just really excited to be hosting the industry and be able to dive in.
Yeah, I'll say this. I went to a couple conferences lately, and the top side events were all real-world assets and DePIN related. Less so on just pure community, pure meme coins, which is fine. They can do all those things. But to see the big uptick in the energy at those events, they're filled up. Tons of people there, a lot of investors, a lot of big money is looking there. There are a lot of eyes in the sector of crypto. A lot of also people thinking maybe we're getting away from this 4-year cycle, which would mean a crazy bear market coming just over the horizon. A lot of people are thinking there's way too much institutional money in here. There's too much big money parked into Bitcoin, into these ETFs. There's so many big boys launching stable coins, like the United States of America's president, World Liberty Fi, dropping and creating the U.S. WIN, I think it's called, or one stable coin that they just dropped. I actually love to get your thoughts on this before we jump into like the real world asset industry conversation. If y'all have any high level thoughts on this new stable coin and the amount of interest there's been driven into the stablecoin conversation, because this is a huge part of the real world asset industry.
This is, like, to me, not shocking at all. It's almost like if the writing was on the wall the whole time, right? It's not surprising that this was actually already a project announced before Trump, took office. So the fact that we now see a renewed focus around crypto, of course, specifically legislation around stablecoins being pushed as the first priority. The amazing thing that's happened is the American government has realized and made the connection that essentially stablecoins are good, right? It means demand for U.S. Treasuries, and that's extremely important and valuable, and that's why it needs to be catered to. So I'm really excited about that, because it's sort of the first RWA use case. It's always been hidden in plain sight. It's almost like now there's over 200 billion of it, and everyone's kind of used to using stable coins. But when you look at the fundamental basis of tokenizing cash, it is revolutionary compared to any other form of using cash, right? Back in the day, it was PayPal and others creating digital currency. That was really revolutionary. Well, now truly stable coins are the next evolution of everything. And to your point, that's why we're going to see every bank pretty much and every major player get into this game. And so the fact that World Liberty Financial is getting into the game too, again, I think that was always going to be the case.
Absolutely. We saw them speaking at the Ondo Summit not too long ago, right? So we understand that they have these relationships going and really exploring this space further. So stablecoin is step one. What's next? What else are they planning out here, right? And so taking a look into their backgrounds and whatnot. But again, a lot of banks are looking at their own stablecoins and or tokenized deposits, depending on what intricacies you want to get. But the whole point, to Herwig's point, is again the movement of money, and of course later on the second order effects of that. Of okay, well, if you can move the cash or the payment leg of a transaction and the delivery leg, now you have a full life cycle going on here, which now enables other things that we can of course dive into.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the stablecoin, especially up until this past year, at least, a lot of retail probably ignored stablecoins because they're like, how am I supposed to make money on this? I can't buy a stablecoin and go up 1,000,000%. I'm just going to not pay attention to this. But what people don't realize that Tether is potentially the most profitable company ever. They're making an obscene amount of money. It's only natural that other companies start to say, okay, hold on. How much money are you making? You did what? You minted some coin and then now people are using it. And now this whole influx of people now, millions and millions of extra dollars right at their fingertips to go now put into other assets that are on the crypto and the blockchain world. So it kind of leads me to this question of like, what are some of the top industries you guys are thinking is going to be affected, probably in a positive light, by tokenization, by being able to fractionalize these assets that are not going to be on chain? My brain instantly goes to real estate. My friend even brought up Bitcoin miners as an option that could be really cool for a fractionalized option for people to invest in, especially for the average person who's like, I can't buy a home. I can't invest in an Airbnb yet. I need to work up to the money to be able to invest that. But now people can go in and buy fractionalized shares of these. So what do y'all think is going to be the most attractive industry for this, I guess?
That's a loaded question. I'm sure Jason and I are each going to have our own answers, but ultimately, I'm probably the most bullish person in the world, right? Everything is going to go on chain ultimately, eventually. There are a lot of people who say it won't, but and certain assets may never make it. But in the future, everything will be issued on chain. So you can work backwards from the biggest asset classes and the biggest financial markets, right, if you want. Or you can look at what you like the most and start to examine the fact that, all commodities and gold is a super popular use case for tokenization. The idea that international investors don't have easy access to public market stocks like Americans do is a very popular concept, that's growing. But if you look at what's happening with stable coins, right, just again, going back to cash, like this is fundamentally going to change finance forever. It's the building block, if you will, the brick that we need to play with for everything. And from there, we're now seeing treasuries and this concept of yield, right, start to get shared back to either the user or the ecosystem. We're seeing private credit and other sort of more, riskier options get tokenized. And of course, real estate is enormous. Just so many different applications to examples like Figure that's already tokenized, over $10 billion worth of home equity loans. Versus, others like Realty that's tokenized over 100 million in properties across 100+ properties, right? I think you could go on forever on where tokenization can be applied. Jason, what gets you excited?
Totally with you there. I'll give you actually a couple examples there just to start, kind of giving the audience to some tangible examples of what we've seen, right? You mentioned Bitcoin mining. There's a perfect example called the Blockstream mining node that we've been tracking for years, actually. And basically what it does is you invest into it and you're essentially buying hash power. And we did a report, which you can find on reports.stm.co. But the long story short was by investing into this security, right, that allows you this exposure to the mining, you actually gained more in return than you would have done if you just bought and held the Bitcoin that day, right? And so there's all analysis you guys can dive into, but that's just one example. So to your point on Bitcoin mining, there's again a whole other slew of arguments for it. Real estate is obviously the big one, or one of the bigger ones, because of how archaic the supply chain has been for them, and the technology and the legacy systems that they run on, right? And then you have, again, just figuring out what's going to be the next leg up in terms of the risk curve and getting comfortable. Cash and treasuries were like the easy one because it's a very easy instrument to understand, to kind of practice tokenization, as I kind of like to put it. And then once you kind of get the hang of it, there's going to be people that really specialize in fixed income and stuff like that. They're going to keep growing, their offerings and supply chain for it. Meanwhile, others, I think, are going to start diving into those higher private credits and then everything else above that, right? So a lot of interesting things there. And then the last thing I'll say is community-based assets. So for example, a soccer club, or if there's a hotel chain that's very popular and that people want, perks at, because it's very easy to track who the owners are on chain. Those are cool use cases. We've seen funds that invest into wines, into diamonds, and a variety of assets, guys. So the whole point being is that tokenization really makes this a little bit easier, a lot easier actually to do. And then on the flip side, when you talk institutional, now you're talking about cost savings, operational things that allow them to make their jobs a little bit easier, faster, and cheaper.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I'm curious. So, like from the conference side of things, when you guys have these speakers coming through and these various, side chats and people coming together to talk about this industry, where are you guys hoping the focus is on? / where are you guys pivoting the focus towards for like conversational points? Like, are you going to be mainly focusing on the various industries that people could jump into? Are you more trying to attract that 0 to 1 crowd, people who don't know anything about RWAs? Are you trying to go like a bit deeper? Like, who is the crowd that you're looking for to come to this event? And also, who is the crowd that you guys already have coming? Maybe some of the speakers or some of the events you guys have already lined up.
Yeah, this is definitely designed for finance professionals and people who are ready to tap into this, trend, and this new evolution of tokenization, right? Whether they're builders, whether they're asset owners and investors, right? Or whether they're even crypto natives who are seeing how this trend is going to take over crypto in many different ways, right? But ultimately, we took it to New York City because we're like, hey, let's go knock on Wall Street's door and say, you have no reason not to learn about this technology. Go walk down the block, take the subway, whatever you need to do to get here. But we are here, and we've brought everybody that is leading this space together, whether it's from the leading blockchains, like we've got, Stellar, Polygon, Avalanche, Provenance, Polymesh, or many others. And then we've also got, some of the leading marketplaces and issuers. Securitize, extremely popular for their BIDL product with BlackRock. Going to be doing a great fireside chat with the CEO, Carlos Domingo, which we did last year as well as bringing in the institutions, right? So we've got a whole day carved out for, having the institutions speak, from the biggest banks and asset managers in the world, the household names, and even like the rating companies like S&P Global is going to have some presence there and speaking on some insights. So covering trends from payment rails and stable coins to also how indices and other parts of finance are getting transformed with this technology, and trying to give a little piece for everybody that's in finance, because that's the idea, right? Is everything's going to get touched by tokenization. It's not one little sliver. We're talking about a whole new operating system, which means it's eventually going to touch every part of whatever financial service that's active today.
Yeah, and I'll just also add, because it is for finance professionals, asset owners, and whatnot, but we also understand there's two sides to it, right? You're here to, one, learn from the pros that have been tokenizing and can share their valuable insight as to, why they're doing it and how they're going to benefit. But then on the flip side, it could be scary to enter a new technology and see how it's going to fit into your asset and how it's going to impact you. Which is why day 3 is like, okay, you understand it now, you kind of understand the lingo. Now let's go back and say, well, if you want to tokenize your asset, here's how you would go about it. And so Security Token Advisors, our sister company, will be doing also a full workshop on day 3, really helping people understand, A to Z, how to kind of approach this and navigate the Web3 space, the tokenization space.
Yeah, that part will be huge, I think. That's awesome that you guys are bringing these people together for that. And one thing also that I'm sure a lot of finance professionals got excited about is to see the owner of basically the whole world, BlackRock, now getting really, really, really interested in Bitcoin. Obviously, they've dropped the most successful Bitcoin ETF has now been launched over a year ago. There's an enormous amount of inflow into these ETFs, the most successful in history. And now he's going and saying, not only does he believe Bitcoin is destined for potentially $1 million or more, but he's saying everything is going to be tokenized. I'm sure everyone has already asked you this because you are in the RWA space. That comment he made a little while ago, he has not backtracked from that statement. He's only shown signs that he continues to believe that. And many industry leaders he's speaking to that are his clients, I'm sure, and his friends in the industry are also thinking, okay, yeah, I guess everything's going to be tokenized. It makes sense. Can't really fight it. It seems that we're going in this direction. I'm curious on, for U.S. sentiment, right? So President Donald Trump gets elected a little while ago. Everyone and their mother says, we're going to the United States. We're moving everything. If we didn't have a part of our business in the United States, we're moving it. And then the market tumbles a little bit and people go, hold on, tariffs? Like, wait, what about this? What about that? And we're starting to see some teetering around the edges now, and people are starting to be unsure. So from your perspective, I'm curious on how you guys see U.S. sentiment around blockchain, tokenization. How is it right now for the industry? What are professionals in your industry, colleagues you have, thinking? Where are we at right now with all this as a country, you think?
Jason, you want to take this one first?
Sure, yeah. First and foremost, I think sentiment is just good. It's great, right? I think a lot of people, especially in our industry, just prefer the new SEC and whatnot, not to mention a bunch of other things going on, which is why we saw, and you might see it in one of our shows, just labeling, the SEC dropping lawsuit after lawsuit after lawsuit. We're really trying to clean up, get rid of this, and let's focus on getting this legal framework out, which is why we just saw them announce that they're going to do 4 more roundtables, right, to learn from the industry. So in terms of, to answer your question on sentiment and how the industry feels about it, I mean, just conversations that we're having, all of a sudden, a lot more of the institutions are peeking their head out. It's like, okay, now we're actually interested. Let's start talking about how we want to go about this, whether it's through tech partners that they may want to work with or just strategizing. Some of them, quite frankly, have a little less of a clue on how to approach it, and they're really figuring out, okay, well, let's now is the time to really educate ourselves and get this going. So sentiment is good. That being said, it is going to take a little bit longer to get that clear, word by word, framework. But again, it is something that's no longer one of those things that it's like, oh my gosh, when is it coming? It's coming. It's just, let's keep an eye on it and keep contributing as much as we can to help educate and get things going. But I'll pass it to Herwig.
I think you summed it up really great, Jason. The market, I think, is a little detached from what's actually happening on the ground, which is everyone is extremely excited about where we are going to be in the next 2 to 4 years, thanks to hopefully new legislation and market clarity. Where are we you're going to see, all of these new tech companies and financial institutions move in and provide services that are going to onboard users and are going to grow this technology. And the sentiment around, I think, even venture capital going back into companies, and even entrepreneurs getting renewed interest around this technology. It couldn't be more bullish than ever, honestly. It's crazy to see where the market is right now, honestly, despite the fact that everything seems like it's so hopeful right now.
It does, yeah. And we're going to see another at least 4 years of potentially pro-crypto presidency. We'll see after the next run what ends up happening. But if it ends up being anyone remotely close to Trump, it will likely be pro-crypto. So say we get the next 4, maybe 12 years or longer of a pro-crypto stance. Where do you guys hope to see / predict the RWA world will be? We're talking about $60 billion, $100 billion. The market cap is potentially limitless on this industry. It could get real crazy. I'm not exactly sure where you'd be able to put out a number on it, but what would you guys hope to see? Do you have any predictions on where we could be sitting at in a few years?
We've tried. we predict 30 trillion by the end of the decade, 2030.
Wow.
Between real estate alone being an enormous potential. Once you start looking at putting registries on chain and you start looking at the collateral value of these assets and just the ability of just a much better improved registry system, like that's what we're talking about with blockchain. It's literally the same technology, right? Or just better improved. You look at commodities, you look at bond markets, you look at public markets, you look at private markets, right? You look at all these different groups and you combine that and you realize, okay, once you take into the fact that the concept of tokenization is actually rather easy. We're not talking about a huge cumbersome, challenge to actually tokenize things. And then with the fact that it's just superior in every single way compared to what we'll call like a dumb paper spreadsheet based asset, right? You're going to see an incredible adoption, I think, towards the end of the decade. And like you said, if we have a 10 to 12 year run here with a pro crypto environment, for sure, we're looking at an entirely new capital market operating system that I think we'll have adopted by the end of that run.
JC, anything else you wanted to add to that?
You killed it, Herwig. No, but absolutely, the whole idea is to get right. The more momentum there is to ride on and continue growing, right, with the industry, the better for all of us, right? And that drives the innovation. It drives a little bit more security, even with compliance departments that have their, ifs, ands, and buts, right? But also for other people that are newer and have their own assets, making it easier and for them to also take advantage of this technology. The harder part really is bringing in. It's like, okay, tokenizing the asset is very easy, actually. It's the rest of the life cycle. So that's the part that's going to take that 12 years, maybe, hopefully shorter. Mm-hmm. But that's why I'm like, okay, if we can get all of the life cycle of the asset on chain, that's really powerful. And so that might take that longer time period in, which hopefully we have.
Yeah, well, I mean, that was kind of goes into my next question. Like what? So yeah, like you said, tokenizing is the easy part. What other aspects of RWAs do you see? What other utilities do you see added to these that really make it an appealing investment as well for people? I'm hoping especially that the average crypto person for the next few years is also looking to level up their game in terms of if they're going to be trading. I know some RWA companies are looking to move into just having secondary markets. You can even trade some of these assets like a proper trader. Some people are saying, no. Let's look at this as an investment. Some are very long-term even. So what are some of those utilities you think are going to be added to RWAs that investors are going to focus on? Or if they're not being built, that you hope to see more of?
Great question. I mean, we're already seeing some utility today, right? Because, again, there's no point in tokenizing assets just going to sit there too. I mean, there is some, but you want to do more with it. What's really going to bring life to it? And so something that we saw, again, going back to the treasuries conversation and stuff like that, we've seen tokenized money market funds not being used on crypto derivatives exchanges to be posted to post, as collateral to post margin, and that allows you to essentially earn until you use it. Otherwise, what's your alternative? You're in a money market fund, you have to liquidate out, use the cash, post margin, then get your cash out, then put it back into the money market fund. What happened in that interim? You missed out on yield. Now you can use that same asset and keep earning while also adding utility to it. We've also seen in real estate where you can take your token that represents equity in a piece of real estate and take a loan out against it, right? It's all using DeFi applications, right? So that's utility too. And there's other really cool use cases out there. Herwig, any ones that come to mind for you?
I love this question because I always like to break it down between the trend of tokenization versus the actual use case and application of tokenization, right? The assets themselves that have been tokenized, and on one end, when you want to look at the exposure opportunity to the trend, we've already seen massive gains behind projects like Ondo, Mantra, Syrup, and Proppy, and many other what we would call sort of RWA native tokens that are actually not securities, they're not investments in the company, but the company behind the tokenization infrastructure, they've launched some kind of crypto native token that you can buy and get exposure to, and they all have their own models. So of course, do your own research. But what is true is some of them are now top 50 coins. Which goes to show you and speaks to the volume of this trend. And I would argue that Ripple is becoming an RWA token. I would argue that Chainlink is becoming an RWA token, right? I think Aave one day is going to turn into a full RWA focused token. Ultimately, this is a trend that's kind of, you can get exposure to on a crypto level, but then also what's really going to supercharge RWA assets themselves, in my opinion, is DeFi, right? We're already seeing a lot of vaults get set up for specific different types of assets. We're talking tokenized stocks. We're talking, yield coins like these tokenized treasuries, and real estate and everything else you're going to start to see get utilized in DeFi, and kind of find an extra mile to these assets that normally, when they weren't tokenized, couldn't tap into these opportunities. So DeFi, I think, is going to be the ultimate driver for adoption of RWAs.
Yeah, man. So exciting. I'm also wondering here for like your conference, you guys are going to have some cool people. I want to ask about which of the speakers you're most, well, I guess you don't want to pick favorites, but I guess insights you're looking to grab from there. Also, who are some of the speakers? But I mean, this is going to be, there's not too many conferences that are fully focused on tokenization of RWAs. This is going to be a good place to go to if this is something you're looking to get into. If you're in the finance industry, you're looking to meet other thought leaders, people who are building here. Like you said, it's in New York. So it's an easy, train ride or subway ride away, a quick little taxi over or a walk over. There's so many people in New York City who are in this industry. It's definitely the place to go. And that's coming up real soon. If you could, let us know exactly the dates of that, and then which speakers you're excited to hear from, who are going to be showing up, and then any insights you're hoping to pull from those conversations.
Yeah, April 16th to 18th. So we're like 20 days away if you're listening live, folks. So mark the date. Absolutely. We'd love to see you there. It's going to be an awesome time because, like I said, we've done a lot of hard work to assemble some of the biggest names, like the CEO of Securitize, Carlos Domingo, CEO of Maple, which, by the way, I think recently hit 700 million, on track for $1 billion in TVL. Sidney Powell, he's going to be there. Robert Leshner, CEO of Superstate, is going to be there. Pretty well-known crypto name, but also I think pretty cool. Cameron Drinkwater, she's the chief product officer of S&P Dow Jones Indices, and she's speaking for the first time ever at a crypto conference. She speaks a lot, but at a crypto conference, right? So this goes to show you that how serious finance institutions are looking at this, which is why Franklin Templeton, Northern Trust, Broadridge, Wisdom Tree, and JP Morgan and many others are represented, as well as, Ripple, Galaxy, and Phallic and X, and many others, right? So a lot of crypto household names that are moving into RWAs as well. We try to bring everybody together.
Yeah, lots and lots of great speakers too. It's you have your household names. You have the people that are really building and making an impact that, if they're not already a household name, they very well could be by the end of the year. So this is really the one spot where it's like, guys, we have boots on the ground. You can trust us to curate a panel or really an agenda of people that are like, these are the people to know. These are the people to network with and to learn from. So a lot of great people there. Ripple, as we all saw, just got out of their situation. So James Wallace from their global financial institutions head will be joining us as well, and sharing some of his insights. We also have people talking about vaults, as Herwig mentioned, with Figure Markets and Economy, also on the yield coin side. So they actually get to talk a little bit about both. So again, a variety of assets and people that are going to be here. Not to mention also those attending that you may want to network with,
including moi, including the Wolf team.
Right. Great media. That's right.
Let's go. I'll have my camera. I'll be filming some stuff. I'm going to chat with some really cool people. So definitely, if you're already in New York or you're going to be in the area, highly recommend you guys go make it out there. We'd love to meet, shake some hands, get some selfies, eat some pizza, do all the things out there in New York. Before we wrap, I also wanted to hear just real quick on how you guys stumbled into this industry exactly, how you guys got to where you're at here, how you guys connected. Just like the quick version of that. It's not exactly the first go-to industry that people in the normal world end up in. Firstly, crypto. Second off, deeply into crypto. Third off, into the RWA industry. There's a whole lot of areas you could have dropped a meme coin, for example, but you guys ended up building in this arena. So maybe I'll start with Herwig, then we'll hit Jason on how you guys got here.
I often wonder what an alternative life would have been like just focusing on meme coins, But no, actually, in this life, I started a compliance company over a decade ago. So I sort of always had a good understanding of how, specifically capital markets were adopting financial technology because they were using my RegTech in some cases. And so naturally, blockchain started to sort of collide with that, right? And so I was fortunate enough to see the vision of RWAs very early on. Found myself advising a local startup here in Miami where we're based to help them raise money like a traditional VC round, but tokenized. And it went very successfully. We ended up starting a consulting company out of that, my partner and I, and eventually we launched Security Token Market, STM.co here, knowing that there wasn't a dedicated hub, dedicated media company focused on what we think is, the biggest use case of tokenization back in 2017, back in 2018. So eventually met Jason here through my business partner who was over at Bank of America. And I'll let Jason kind of share his story before we poach him from over there.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So, I started really on the consulting side, helping people with their business plans, new startups, existing businesses, just think through how to pivot if they needed to, stuff like that. Went to Bank of America, started, working with wealth management, learning the game, getting my licenses. They're probably expired now on broker check, but but that was a fun time. And at the same time, I was helping out at STM.co, and we met through Herbert's business partner at the time, and so in this business, and so I was helping out and understanding what is blockchain, what is this tokenization thing, and how does it affect my job. Quickly realized, oh my gosh, my job sucks right now because there's so many things that you have to do when you're again working in wealth management that tokenization would help fix. So it was a very easy decision to come on full-time STM.co. It's like, this is it. This is the future of finance. And thankfully it was proven right. Years later, there was actually a case study that JP Morgan did on this very same topic that we actually covered at last year's TokenizeThis. So anyway, long story short, this is kind of, my, foray in. Yeah.
Very cool. So this is not the first you guys are putting on this conference. Something you guys have done before. What is something you guys are looking to add / improve on from the last year's conference, now moving into the one that's coming up here just around the corner?
Yeah, last year was our trial run. So we did it in Miami, our backyard, make it a little easier for us. We had over 500 people tune in. So that really told us, okay, we can put this conference together again. But we knew we had to take it to New York, the big leagues, if you will. So for one bigger venue, with even better speakers, better media production. This time we have Wolf as well as many other great, household brand media names that are attending and even moderating some of the panels to keep things spicy and unbiased. And ultimately, we've got some amazing production. So we will eventually get this content out on our YouTube a little bit after the conference. But, if you get a chance to tune in and hear live, definitely come and join us in New York.
Absolutely. And I have this down. You guys probably saw it pop up a couple of times. I just didn't want to pop it up over Herwey's face. But
it's all right. It's more important.
Yeah, you can grab a 10% off this. There's no reason to pay full price. We literally have a Wolf code if you want to use it. It's down below in the description. If you're on YouTube, if you're watching us on X, it is in the comment below on Wolf Financial. It's also in the comment below on Wolf Crypto. And so definitely go check that one out. If you're not able to make it to the actual conference, then just be sure to be following STM.co. And they should all be tagged actually in the title. And if you're in YouTube, down in the description, if you want to follow along, we'll be posting some content over there from Wolf, I'm sure, or my personal at the very least. So I'm very much looking forward to this conference. I'll turn it back over to Jason Herwig for any final thoughts, last things you want to let people know about while we're here. If there's anything we haven't covered that you want to let people know about.
Just that tokenization, RWAs, as a lot of people in the crypto world are learning, are just growing in popularity, but also in use and usefulness, right? And so it's maturing. This is it. So this is the one conference where you come to learn all of it, and we're very excited to have all of you join us alongside our wonderful speakers, moderators, and everyone else. So just prepare yourselves for a really great, fun 3 days and insightful 3 days. Herwig, anything else to add?
If you have any questions about RWAs, just shoot us a DM. We are here for you. And as I like to always end our weekly podcast, to wish everybody happy tokenizing.
Happy tokenizing. Could have said it better myself. guys, thank you all for tuning in. Be sure to give them a follow and definitely make it out to the conference if you're anywhere near or have nothing going on during those dates. Hopefully we'll see you guys at that conference. We'll see you next time. Take care.
Thanks for having us, Gabe.